Hi, I'm Dr. Marty Klein with more sexual intelligence. You know, despite all the self help books, all the blogs and forums and social media, and all the coaches and therapists, almost none of whom have much training in sexuality, people still do things to undermine their sexual experience, preventing their own satisfaction. Patients often ask me questions about sexual technology, about new positions, sorry, there aren't any, about how to squirt during cunnilingus, about how to last longer before ejaculation, whether to have a threesome, and so on. Generally, I think it's more important for people to stop doing stuff that limits satisfaction and connection before thinking about new techniques or getting new sex toys or deciding what their orientation or identity is. So here are a few examples of low-hanging fruit, what you could stop doing that undermines your sexuality. For example, stop having sex when you don't want to. About a third of my new patients periodically have sex when they don't want to, or they do stuff during sex that they don't want to do. These people are not forced or threatened, they're not physically coerced. In fact, most of them aren't even verbally bullied. About half of these people, by the way, are men. Now, these people pressure themselves. They say variously they owe it to their kind patient mate, they say it's their duty, they say they need to prove to themselves that they're normal or manly or womanly or really gay or really straight. They say they don't want to be selfish. They say they ought to enjoy things that they actually don't. They say not being in the mood isn't a good enough reason to say no. They say they're afraid that their partner will leave them. Long term, these beliefs don't work very well. After a few months or a few years of sex they don't want, people with limited desire or preferences generally get even more limited. They find more reasons to say no that aren't entirely honest. They become less interested in non-sexual affection. They may start sleeping on the couch or in the guest room or with the kids. If they don't become resentful, they become depressed. If they don't become depressed, they become resentful. If they're resentful enough, they may have an affair. Yeah, someone with restricted sexual appetite for their partner may have an affair because it looks like that's a chance to feel normal, to feel desired instead of used, to feel seen and accepted as they are. It may also be a silent, the heck with you, to the partner they feel has been mistreating or misunderstanding them. When people are afraid that they won't get erect or lubricate or have an orgasm, and they have quiet, desperate sex without simply admitting their fear, their experience is rarely playful or pleasurable. Who would be eager to have more sex like that? Well, here's another thing you could stop doing. Stop opening the relationship when you have poor communication. An open relationship, different people call it poly or swinging or consensual non-monogamy, involves some sex and a lot of talking, if you do it right. If it doesn't involve a lot of productive talking, it will involve a lot of pain and arguing. In that case, people will frequently blame non-monogamy. If the relationship ends, some observers will say, well, what do you expect? They slept with other people. Interestingly, when monogamous couples split up, people rarely blame monogamy. What do you expect? They were only sleeping with each other. When couples don't get along, the solution is not to open the relationship. They have to learn to get along first. Even if sex is the main source of conflict, people have to learn to cooperate, to talk honestly, and to listen better before taking on the additional challenges of non-monogamy. If couples don't want to put in the work to do that, maybe they don't belong together. And non-monogamy may actually finish off the relationship, which, interestingly, some people want, but they're unwilling to admit, whether to themselves or to their partner. Here's another thing you could stop doing. Stop coupling up despite a desire discrepancy. Now, if you're already a couple, this brilliant insight comes a bit late for you. But if you're in a not yet but almost committed couple, in which your sexual desire is much lower or much higher than your partner's, be realistic. That means facing the likelihood that you each hope the other will change, that neither of you will, and that you're heading for years of struggle. Every week, patients ask me, how important is sex anyway? Are sexual difficulties so important that they should scuttle an otherwise good relationship? The amount of sex that people have is not a good predictor of relationship satisfaction. Plenty of happy couples have little or no sex, but they can be happy only if they're both content with little or no sex. When people continually disagree about sex, it quickly becomes a very big deal. And in this matter, how much people love each other is simply irrelevant. Unfortunately, a simple compromise rarely works here. If A wants sex once a day and B wants sex once a year, compromising by having sex half as much as A wants, that won't be acceptable to B. And having sex twice as much as B wants, that won't be acceptable to A. And love will have nothing to do with it. How important is sex in a relationship? For most people, after the first few years, if the sex is satisfactory, it's not that important. But if there's lots of conflict about sex, sex soon becomes the center of the relationship. Here's another thing you can stop doing. Stop working hard to not masturbate, or stop working hard to get someone else to stop masturbating. Periodically, some new patient will think that I'll be shocked by some unusual thing that they're into, and I never actually am. But here's what still surprises me: the number of women who demand that their guys stop masturbating. Guys typically respond in one of two ways. They don't commit to stopping, inviting conflict, or they commit to stopping and they don't, and sooner or later that invites conflict. Now, sometimes a woman's demand is, I don't watching porn while you masturbate. But if I ask for clarification, it's often, I don't want you masturbating without porn either. I sympathize with women who are sexually frustrated. They're not getting enough sex with their partner. But they frequently believe that if you cut off a guy's solo sexual outlet, he'll turn in desperation to his wife or girlfriend for sex. This strategy simply does not work. Guys who really enjoy sex with their partner rarely, after masturbating, decide, whoa, this is so much easier than great sex with my partner. Like women, men withdraw from partner sex because it isn't enjoyable enough to make it worth the effort, or because they have issues with intimacy or sexuality. Making guys hornier or crabbier by taking away their masturbation doesn't typically change this. Regardless of gender or orientation, when someone demands that their partner stop masturbating or watching porn, they're proposing a solution to a problem. They'd be much better off discussing the problem directly instead of arguing about a particular solution. Well, as I say, when you're digging yourself into a hole, the best next step is to stop digging. In my other videos, of course, I talk about how to improve sex after you stop digging. Well, thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this, do hit like and subscribe. And if you like your sexual intelligence in even smaller bites, check me out on Instagram at Dr. Marty Klein. That's all spelled out, all one word, Dr. Marty Klein. Thanks for watching.